Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Benedict here again from BJ Learn. And in this class, I want us to talk about the difference between relative and absolute reference. In our previous class, I had mentioned that we'll use advanced logical functions to do depreciation. But before then, I want us to talk about relative and absolute references. We want to differentiate the two. We want to know when to use which. And let's start by talking about relative reference. So when we talk about relative reference, we mean that the reference will always be changing when we move to a different location. Like now, when I move to a D4, now we have D4 as opposed to having a D4. Rather, now we have D5 as opposed to having D4. When I move to this cell here, now we have E6 as opposed to having as a D4. So the cell name changes to the new active cell. So we are saying that relative reference means that the reference changes with the new location. So let's try to calculate a commission based on column C. So we want to calculate commission of 5% for each individual. So we type is equal to C4 times 5%. So here our relative reference in this cell is C4. So when I drag this formula down, you can see now we have different commission based on relative reference cells. Like now, this one is based on a C4. The next one is based on a C5. This other one is based on C6. So C4 to C16 have been used as relative reference cells when we are calculating the commissions of each and every individual. So we just said that relative reference changes when we move to that the reference of a given cell changes when we move to a different location. So let's talk about absolute reference. So absolute reference, the reference cell will not change when we move to uh, a different location. So like now when we apply the formula using the 0.5% to get the commission 2, the formula will be based on E2 and not any other cell. So let's try to do the same. So we type is equal to, so we click E2. Then to make it an absolute reference, we must log E and 2 with a dollar sign. So we'll come and type a dollar sign before E and a dollar sign before 2. So this means that we've logged the column E and we've also logged the row 2. So the relative reference cell will be E2. Both the column and the row have been logged, so they have been stationed in E2. So we want to multiply this by C4. So C4 has not been locked, so this is a relative reference. So we have both absolute reference and relative reference. So when we drag down, so let's drag this down. So this should be 0.5%. So 0.5 of this is half of this, but we want 5%. So it should be 0.05. So you see now what we have. So when I double click here just to check how the formula has been applied, so we have E2 and C4. The same applies when I go to this other value. We have E2 and C4. So in this column we have mixed references. We have both absolute reference and relative reference. So the column C is giving us a relative reference, and column E and row 2 is giving us a an absolute reference cell, which is E2. So that's how to apply both relative and absolute references when doing calculations or when doing other functions within Excel. So let's stop at that. When we come back, I want us to talk about how to apply advanced logical functions when doing depreciation. So thanks for watching, and let's meet in the next class.